So, on February 12th, 2018, at the time of the video when it was released, Dalyxman posted a video called The Great Sabotage, the reason why wrestlers don't and won't get over in WWE. I watched the video several times in order to get a full bearing of what was said. I have actually said this, that WWE might be trying to intentionally hurt certain talented guys, like a Kevin Owens, like a Sami Zayn, like Bayley, like Sasha Banks, like Charlotte. And I know what I'm about to say is going to be unpopular, but also Roman Reigns to an extent. I'll get to him in a moment. I've been saying this for 2 years on YouTube, how WWE, specifically three guys who I've labeled now the triumvirate of WWE, Vince, Kevin Dunn, and John Cena, basically have all the power. Vince is the owner, Kevin Dunn is the camera producer, and Cena's the enforcer and wrestler. But when I was thinking how they sabotaged people, I thought, is it because of xenophobia, because certain wrestlers are foreign and Vince just doesn't imagine a foreign person being a good person for some reason? Is it because it's NXT and because everyone thinks of NXT and Triple H and saying he's better than you? When SmackDown Live was getting over, that was getting popular, and then all of a sudden it just stopped being good as it used to be. Like, there's occasionally some good episodes, but then it just really went downhill because Ryan Ward was doing a better job. And then Dalyxman pointed out a theory I didn't think of. Is it because guys like Punk, like The Rock, and I'll add another name, Hulk Hogan, they all left. They said, I don't need you. I can go somewhere else and make more money. Like, think about it. Hulk Hogan is probably the most egotistical wrestler, in my opinion, that has ever walked the face of this planet in the business. When he refused to make a cut deal with Verne Gagne regarding New Japan Pro Wrestling, regarding Japan, when Hogan was going to go to Japan, and Verne Gagne wanted a huge percentage of the merchandise because he's going to win the AWA Championship, Hogan said, no, you're not doing it. And all throughout that AWA documentary, I kept wondering, why? Why do you not want to split the profits? Like, you're representing his company, you're signed under contract with him, you have to take some compromises here. We never got an answer for that. I never saw an answer in that video, in that documentary, and I've watched this so many times. And yeah, the fact that now, when you also think about it, I started thinking more like, would WWE have done this if there was no WCW? If they just, all the old wrestlers left, like Randy Savage, Hulk Hogan, Warrior, Nash, Hall, Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Imagine if all these guys left, but WCW didn't exist. If they went to Hollywood or they went to do something else. Would Vince have really been motivated to push for a Stone Cold? Would he have really wanted a Rock? Would he have really wanted any of these guys? Would anyone who works at that company now, if there are still some that work still from back then, would they have really pushed certain guys if WCW didn't exist? If all these wrestlers left, they would just have done it what they're doing now? In fact, I said this on Dalyxman's page regarding this video. I wrote in a comment. I said this is basically WCW all over again. Except whereas Eric Bischoff was practically manipulated by various wrestlers like Hogan, Nash, and Hall, in WWE, however, Vince and Dunn just do it because they can. Because they're at this point where they think, Oh, I'm the biggest guy. I'm the biggest bully in the yard. I can do whatever I please. And then all of a sudden, all these other younger kids are now standing up to him and done, thinking, hey, we can be just as big if we work together. Like, you have Ring of Honor, you got New Japan Pro Wrestling, you got all these rising companies, and even to an extent Impact Wrestling. What do? They try to be themselves, they try to offer something different, they try to get people who were never used at the proper level to get over and be world champion and make money. Like, if Impact Wrestling didn't exist, would Jeff Hardy have gotten WWE Championship Gold? Would Matt Hardy have been ECW champion? And even then, I don't count that as a world title, because ECW, when I think of it, I think of Extreme Pro Wrestling, Extreme Championship Wrestling, not that recycled, dieted version that they made in WWE when Vince McMahon took over and fired Paul Heyman. And then I had copied and pasted and made some edits to it, the list of guys who were screwed over back when, for the last several years. Like the Nexus, for an example. They were getting really over, they were getting heavily popular, then Cena says, I don't want to do it, let's bury them. Basically, and Vince went with it, even though he really should have said no. And to this day, Wade Barrett was given bullshit reasons, like SummerSlam needs a happy ending, even though years later they don't have happy endings for SummerSlam. It's always the night of the villains. Then you got Barrett's Bad News Barrett gimmick. They tell him, you can't do that anymore. It's too popular. And I was like, well, why don't you turn him face? When I had read that. Barrett himself said that in an interview just right before the end of 2017, and he did it a few years ago when he was still employed with WWE after they had gotten rid of it. He had confirmed in an interview that got really viral on WrestlingIncorporated.com and some other dirt sheet sites, where Barrett had basically confirmed that WWE officials told him, you can't do that gimmick anymore. It's too popular. And all I was thinking, and Barrett said this in an interview, just turn me face. Just turn him face. Like, I can be a face. I've never tried it. Let's do it. Like, I'm popular. That I'm making money for you guys. Just do it. But for some reason, Vince and whoever else is in charge is saying, no, we can't. You have to be evil. And I don't think Barrett knows. I'm not sure. I don't think if Barrett knows what the hell did they mean by you have to be evil. Is it because he's foreign? Because he's British? Because he's not an American, so we don't have any more America! Fuck yeah! Storylines for Cena to be popular with? Because America first, the world fuck over? Yeah. And then I listed more guys, like Daniel Bryan before WrestleMania 30. He's a, quote, I had written in a way Vince would probably had said, he's a small indie wrestler. Batista's the guy. At least until after Elimination Chamber 2014, and then everything went to hell, especially after the Royal Rumble. But here's the thing about that storyline. Vince, and I refuse to, and this might be me in denial, but I refuse to believe Triple H went along with this. But he said that this was all planned. I'm pretty sure if Vince had said that, everyone would have called out on their bullshit. But since Triple H, because everyone knew Triple H was starting to get popular after what happened at NXT when it was getting this big push to get more exposure, did Vince knowingly know to use Triple H's rising popularity with the internet fans to try and go ahead and deflect and double down on the whole Daniel Bryan yes movement thing that they keep thinking, yeah, we made that? They didn't. As much as Vince, in his delusional state, likes to think, yeah, I made that, you were forced. He couldn't have made that organically. There is no way nowadays he would make something that organic and unique. They were forced to. Because fans had said, fuck you. We're having enough of this. And then something else started happening as the years went by. Like 2014, Cesaro was getting seriously over. They pair him up with Paul Heyman, keep him in limbo, and nothing happens. He's just stuck. And then they took away his spin technique because it got popular. And then Vince basically confirmed his dislike of Cesaro, claiming he's boring. And I can only assume that because he thinks Cesaro is boring, is it because he's not a sports entertainer, he's a professional wrestler, like the Revival said, and then all of a sudden they start getting screwed over? Doesn't that seem a little odd that happened? And then the Chance, and like, Bo Dallas, he was getting over that same year, and then Vince and Dunn basically ordered Bryan, from a report I read, that the reason why Bryan was at Money in the Bank 2014 wasn't to talk about his possible second surgery. No, the only reason they said why he was brought on that show was so he can bury Bo Dallas to, quote, make him a better heel. Just turn face. It's that simple. But they don't want that. Or, if they really were wanting to make Bo Dallas a series heel, instead of burying him, why not just reference CM Punk? Everyone was chanting his name really loudly with great passion. Why not just talk about CM Punk? Just say, Bo Dallas, in Chicago, I was hoping that when they did an episode of Chicago, I was hoping Bo Dallas would show up with a stupid smile on his face and say, you see, the Authority has given people opportunity. He has given, and like referencing all the guys that people in Chicago hate right now at that time, like Vince, Stephanie, and Triple H. They could have went ahead and referenced CM Punk, and Bo Dallas would have gotten serious heat. And now look at him. He's part of the Miztourage, even though he should have been at least Intercontinental Champion worthy. No, he's just a stooge now. And then there's Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn got heat for some reason for Once Upon a Time, right before his heel turn, for reasons that made no sense. Like, it was never explained why he had heat. So they decided to make him a doofus backstage and make him act like that nerd hanging out with all his heroes. That's the vibe I kept getting, at least. And I'll admit I'm a nerd, but yeah, but I think Vince's perception of what a nerd is nowadays is seriously lopsided. Bray Wyatt, he was over in 2014. Then they buried him to Cena because we can't imagine a world where Cena loses, or at least clean. And then Kevin Owens had momentum, and then Vince, using the merchandise card, said, Cena's sales went down a couple of points. We got to get back that momentum, even though there could have been another factor why Cena was losing merchandise sales. It probably has to do with using a cancer kid to go ahead and get a cheap pop, even though there's no connection to it whatsoever, and they could have just done it after the show like they did, but instead they referenced this kid for a storyline purpose that had no connection whatsoever. It's just Cena selling his trademark. And I will say, the kid had the best day of his life, but I still found it strange that happened. Not him having the kid on the show after the show. I mean, like, why bring up a kid that was fighting cancer, going ahead, be referenced in a storyline that has nothing to do with this kid, and seeing him just use his trademark catchphrase all of a sudden, even though Owens didn't do that. Owens didn't point out a kid in the audience. He didn't attack the fans. He was attacking Cena, yet Cena deflected and just did that bullshit. And then there's James Ellsworth. I talked about him. Like, he was, at the time before his heel turn, he was getting more merchandise sales than the returning Goldberg, then Lesnar, then Roman Reigns. And then the heel turn happened, and I was like, okay, I get in storyline purposes, they made him arrogant, I get that, but the timing of it just seemed to rub me the wrong way. Like, why turn him heel when his merchandise sales is so big? When he's so popular? Was Vince looking for some excuse to try and turn him heel? because Reigns, Lesnar, and Goldberg are the be-all end-all of WWE, and to an extent Cena. And then the whole idea of, hey, let's turn him transsexual and face Charlotte, even though commentators have called him a freak of nature, a disgusting creature, a regressed evolutionary phase. And I kept thinking, okay, I have no problem with LGBT people, with transsexual people. I have no problem with them, or the LGBT community, or whatever's. But wouldn't it have come across as mean-spirited, considering they spent a year of him being there bashing his appearance? If they had done the transsexual storyline, I really think that would have really backfired. Because why would they do this storyline all of a sudden? Why would they sacrifice on younger women talent to just go ahead and do this kind of stupid idea? And then there's Bayley. She gets this popular NXT gimmick, the hugger, but has an aggressive edge to it from time to time that comes out. They took it away from her after she made her debut. Name one time she had an aggressive moment on the main roster. Then there's Sasha Banks. They pulled the injury-prone excuse. Becky Lynch, she has a, quote, thick Scottish accent and lower her promo time, which was said that's why Kevin Dunn was lowering her promo time, because he didn't like her accent. So I was thinking, so can we go with xenophobic a little bit? Is it, or slightly racist? I'm pretty sure we can make that argument. Then there's Sasha Banks. I mean, not Sasha Banks. I mean, then there's Zack Ryder. Remember, he was super over back in 2011, won the U.S. title. He was opening Raw. He was main eventing shows occasionally. And then all of a sudden, the moment he gets put into a storyline with Cena and Kane during the whole Embrace the Hate storyline and gets paired up with Eve, it just comes to an end. And all I was wondering is why? Why make Zack Ryder Ken father? And then I believe Talk is Jericho podcast, and I believe Zack Ryder was in an interview. I could be wrong. They talked about it, and Zack Ryder, I believe, said that the only reason why he was put in that storyline was so they can destroy his momentum. Because he did creativity and used the internet, the thing that Vince doesn't believe in, to get himself over without the WWE, that pissed Vince off. And here's the thing. I've recently tried to lower my viewpoint of Cena creatively controlling everybody, but here's the thing I'm wondering. If Cena really is this great guy, why doesn't he stand up for the younger guys? Like, all throughout this I kept wondering, look, CM Punk stood up for them, and he wanted to main event WrestleMania. He kind of sacrificed that to stand up for the younger talent. So why doesn't Cena do that? Is it because he doesn't want to, or because he's not there anymore? If so, that doesn't make sense, because he was there for years and was there full time until his Hollywood deals started shooting up, becoming a hypocrite, but that's a different matter. But when it was starting to, and then now recently it was reported Ty Dillinger may be going to the downfall state, because they don't want the fans to use the 10-10-10 gimmick, even though last year, when Ty Dillinger was called up, Vince wanted Ty Dillinger to get over, hoping that the 10 chance could get bigger than the yes chance. And like, now, this could also apply to not just the wrestlers. I was wondering why Dalyxman didn't reference, like, maybe the commentators or the writers as well being somewhat oppressed, because think about it. Ryan Ward was lead writer, SmackDown Live was kicking ass. He's no longer a lead writer, and now Raw and SmackDown are an even playing field, even though one should be better than the other occasionally, and the other one should try to be better than SmackDown or Raw. But they don't do that. They have to destroy it. This happened with Paul Heyman when he was lead writer. Because SmackDown was doing better than Raw, they wanted to get rid of him. They wanted to send him to developmental. That didn't work out for them, because he wanted to work with the younger talent, because he can make them, he can develop them, he can help them out, like CM Punk. And when I heard Ryan Ward being lead writer of SmackDown was removed from his position and replaced with Road Dogg, I was wondering why. because he was doing better, he was making better shows than Raw. But that's the idea of competition. One has to make the other look better. If one's doing better, then instead of being pissed off about it, they should try to get even better. But that's the whole point of the brand split. But now they're saying, no, that's not the case. It's because USA Network excuse. And Ryan Ward is punished for this because he dared make a show. He dared give character development. He dare give wrestlers, the younger guys, opportunity. He dare make SmackDown the true land of opportunity. And then there's the Cruiserweight Classic. They got rid of the trademark. Yeah, apparently they got rid of the trademark. So they kept saying this was going to be an annual thing or somewhat annual thing or semi-annual or biannual. Nope, it's no longer happening. They got rid of the trademark. There's no point now. So what they basically said was, yeah, Vince doesn't want Cruiserweight Classic because that's a Triple H thing. 205 Live is where is that, baby? And now look where 205 Live is at. It was struggling to even get a small viewership. Audience fans were leaving because they kept having the show after SmackDown Live, even though everyone's exhausted at this point. So that leads to another problem. Triple H takes over, then everyone starts saying 205 Live is getting great again. They have a tournament, Rockstar Spud's in charge of the general manager role, even though he really should be competing or doing something worth his time instead of being a general manager. So I'm thinking, yeah, does Triple H really know what to do with this business and not Vince anymore? Yeah, pretty much. And then there's the most obvious example I could go with, besides all these other people I listed. Mauro Ranallo. This is going to get very personal. Mauro Ranallo was getting bullied last year. I had heard JBL was bullying him, and then reports started coming out that JBL has been bullying people for years and he could get away with it because he has tenure. And all throughout this, I'm wondering, why doesn't Vince do something? And then a report came out why Vince didn't do a thing. Or at least had why he did not have much of a role in this whole issue. Vince does not like Mauro Ranallo. Now, why doesn't Vince not like Mauro Ranallo? That's a curious thing, isn't it? Is it because he did something backstage? No, that's not it. Is it because he angered somebody? No, that's not it. In a direct manner. No, the reason why Vince supported JBL over Mauro Ranallo was because Mauro Ranallo was too much being like himself. Mauro Ranallo was not like Michael Cole. Vince wanted him to be like Michael Cole. Initially, he was allowed to be himself, but when it got very popular with people and they wanted him more, Vince wanted him to be Michael Cole. He still went to try and be Mauro Ranallo. Vince didn't like it, so he just basically said, JBL, just bully him. Do whatever. You can do whatever you want. I don't care. And that is the most fucked up thing I ever heard. That I was like, if I wasn't on vacation at the time when all these reports came out, I would have stopped. I would have stopped watching SmackDown until he was gone. And then I had heard that not only did they know this is a problem and they ignored it, instead favored the bully over the guy who's being victimized, they try to double down and make JBL a good guy on television, even though everyone has known he doesn't like it. JBL isn't that guy. He's not this good guy. Everyone knows it now. Fans were chanting, fire him. Get rid of him. And the whole, because he has tenure, that's why he can't leave. They fired Billy Gunn. You know, Mr. Ass. The badass Billy Gunn. They fired him back in the early 2000s. And people were shocked at that because he had tenure more on the level with Undertaker and Shawn Michaels. Yeah, that was actually said. And they fired him, so why not fire JBL? That was never explained. Because JBL kissed Vince's ass, because he actually follows what Vince wants, he does everything Vince says instead of trying to be himself. And that was the most disgusting thing, especially since Maranello, I really relate to him. I was, someone might say I'm being extremely biased, but the reason why I was so sad for Maranello going through all that at the time was because that happened to me. I was bullied. I probably could do something, but my anxieties, my issues with my mind, I didn't want to, and my morality stopped me from fighting back pretty much. Like, I wasn't physically messed with because I'm a big kid. I was a big kid back then even, and people always thought I could fuck someone up because of my size. But they knew I couldn't bring myself to do it unless it was an act of self-defense, I believe. They could do whatever, but yeah, pretty much my size practically stopped me from getting physically dealt with. But verbally, that was a different matter. Because I didn't answer a question about women. They think I'm gay. Really? That's the logic you're going with? That seriously was the logic I had to deal with throughout 7th grade, and I don't like talking about it. I've been a fan of WWE since 2001, when I saw The Rock. And the fact that now WWE might not just be... And here's the thing. WWE might be intentionally sabotaging. The very fact that this is now spreading, that is actually going to people's heads more than just me, because I could probably go into conspiracy theorist character mode. The fact that this is now actually becoming a thing and actually getting into people's minds and actually thinking, that might actually be true, regardless of any logical BS that is concerning and and really sad. The fact that I could watch TV, I can watch SmackDown, I can watch Raw, I could watch Elias and Rusev get over, but they won't amount to anything in Vince's world. The fact that that mentality is now growing with fans is kind of also depressing. The fact that, I believe people thought I was crazy in the comment section thinking I'm exaggerating, like this is all BS. And now, look at it. People are now starting to think, you might be these people might be onto something. And now it's now freaking me out because I really had wished this isn't true. But all the evidence hints at this. And I'm wondering, why don't they revolt? Why don't they just walk out? Like CM Punk did it. Neville did it. Austin Aries was fired because they had nothing for him, and if so, then why not get rid of Finn Balor? And the fact that WWE has this mentality that if they don't have a person who is WWE for life, or WWE created, then all these other guys are worthless. If you think of Seth Rollins, you think Tyler Black, you think Ring of Honor, you think of Dean Ambrose, you think of Jon Moxley and CWZ, or all the other hardcore wrestling promotions. You think of AJ Styles, you think of Impact Wrestling, you think of Ring of Honor, you think of Japan, you think of Bullet Club. Jimmy Jacobs especially, I talked about him, about his firing and how bullshit that was because he dared take a photograph with outside wrestlers who are his buddies in real life. But yeah, the fact that, let's see, if you think of the UK wrestlers, you think of all the UK promotions. I'm surprised they haven't been fired by Vince's egotistical bullshit. When you think of Gallows and Anderson, you think of the club. You think of Bullet Club. You think of New Japan Pro Wrestling. You think of where they used to be very popular. Yeah, they were once upon a time, well, at least Luke Gallows was in WWE. He was kind of WWE bound for life. But then WWE said, we don't need you. We don't want you. And look where he got, and then they came back, went on their knees and said, please come back! And now look where they're at. They're doing the nerd gimmick, and I was like, isn't Carl Anderson called the Machine Gun? Why is he not being the machine gun as he's known in Japan. They started to do it at first, and they fucked it all up within 3 weeks to give Roman Reigns a push, more so. And this leads to Roman Reigns. Why would I say Roman Reigns is also being sabotaged in my mind? Well, think about this. The Rock dealt with this issue. They turned him heel. They did that. There's a lot of other wrestlers who, like Hulk Hogan, he turned heel when fans started hating him. When they got sick of the goody, squeaky, clean, good guy. And that was in WCW. But even then, they brought him back as a heel in 2002. The Rock turned heel again when he was getting hated for going to Hollywood. So this leads to a question. Why don't they turn him heel? Honestly, I don't think it's really because it's not because he's NXT. I don't think that is that anymore, because if he was, he wouldn't have been pushed. I think they're going to do something else. I think they're trying to find the opposite extreme. Think about it. Whenever you think of Roman Reigns' push, you're thinking of Cena. Remember how Cena got seriously big, and now people just want him to go away? Now fans are calling for Reigns' death now, which I think is seriously going too far. And I'm pretty sure Dalyxman would agree with me on that. But the fact that Reigns has been given the opposite extreme of a push, whereas they just bury all the NXT guys and gals, Roman Reigns has been given the opposite. He's being overused. He's becoming overrated for fans. Which has now reached a level of heat that it's become depressing. And even more so, Dalyxman pointing this out in his What Corber Wants, What Fans Want, there's nothing left. Once Reigns beats Brock Lesnar, and it's happening, I can guarantee that, there's nothing left for him to do. He has beaten everybody. He's beaten everybody, I must stress, at least once. He's won all the championships that's not the Cruiserweight or the Women's title. He's been Tag Team Champion. Heck, Cena didn't have this. Cena was never Intercontinental Champion. He's won the other titles, at least once. Never won the IC title. And now, even now he still hasn't won it. And he's on the way out. The fact that we can go ahead, list all these people that could have been screwed over. Like, even Triple H screwed people over during his reign of terror days when he was a full-time superstar. I get that. I really do get that. But the reason why I don't really care anymore about that is because here's the thing, whereas Cena and Vince don't want to admit that they made a mistake, at least Triple H is trying to fix what he's done. He made NXT. He's been putting people over since he entered part-time status because he knows he doesn't need this anymore. He could probably want it, but he doesn't need it. And look at Bray Wyatt. Just 1 year ago, he had the whole damn world in his hands, and now he's back to doing nothing. That was 1 year ago. He won an Elimination Chamber, won the title, dropped it a month later, and is back to doing nothing. And Ronda Rousey? What do you think of Ronda Rousey when you think of her? You think UFC. You think of all these other things she's done outside WWE. She didn't wrestle. A report came out that the reason why they brought her in wasn't because I saw dollar signs. Well, they kind of did see that. No. They brought her in to make Stephanie look like a star. To make her look like a mainstream star. No. And then, even though Ronda Rousey's most likely going to win that match, Stephanie McMahon still gets the big mainstream exposure that WWE thinks they don't have. And then months, and then it said in a few months, probably I believe it will be Survivor Series in my guess. Ronda Rousey's going to be the one that beats Asuka. The first time ever, Ronda Rousey takes the streak. Kills it. All that 2 years. 2 years of non-stop matches. 2 years of winning matches. And it's going to basically the female Brock Lesnar. The baddest woman on the planet, as she is called, is going to be Asuka and destroy the streak. And not a person like Ember Moon. Not a person like Nikki Cross. Not a person like Bayley. Like Sasha. I'm surprised they didn't consider Nikki Bella because everyone hates her. They try to be petty when they use Nikki Bella because I firmly believe the only reason she had that Divas Championship reign was to spite Punk and AJ Lee because they left. They didn't need them anymore. They didn't want to give them respect, so they said, fuck you, we're leaving. And they tried to get back at them in the most saddest way possible. But instead of keeping her reign, they dumped it a week later after it was all done. Basically saying, yeah, you may be John Cena's girl, but you're not John Cena, so you have outlived your usefulness. You have no value left to us in terms of championship reigns. Oh, you can try and compete for it, but you're never going to win it. That's the mentality I keep thinking they have on her. And because certain guys left, Dalyxman said this, because certain guys left, that means WWE has to kill all these other guys' futures in WWE. And Dalyxman, like I'm saying, I just hope this is just BS. I hope this whole theory's BS, just like Dalyxman is hoping. Because the sheer idea of it is insane. It's really freaking insane. But here's the best way to describe what WWE is basically doing. Those who do not learn the mistakes of the past are doomed to repeat it. Think about it. Vince Russo, Eric Bischoff in the WCW establishment, and the older veterans. Vince Russo wanted the younger guys to get pushed. The veterans and the executives like Bischoff didn't want it. Look what happened to that. Now you got Vince and Dunn and Cena to an extent whining to Triple H saying we're not doing that, and Triple H saying, can we just do it? Let's push these guys. We need more crops. We need more new top stars. We can't just keep relying on Cena every single time. And now they did get a replacement, except they did the opposite style, and they ruined his life. And they basically ruined his career because they gave him everything. Roman Reigns has now nothing left after the Universal Championship after WrestleMania. There's nothing left. He can leave and go somewhere else. They practically made him so popular. They made him so hated that if he leaves, WWE loses the money they could get of a heel turn, and another small wrestling company could become big if they get to acquire Roman Reigns. If Ring of Honor got him, they'd be in business because they would just turn him heel. TNA, they would kill for someone like Reigns to come in, to bring in viewership like that, seeing a hated character to be finally crossing the dark side, something fans clamored for. And some still do, even though I kind of lost faith in that now. There's no point in fix this. They're not going to fix it. And here's the thing. When they said that let's get rid of the 10 chance, and let's get rid of the 1 fall chance, I was like, why? So let's see if I get this straight. 10, 10, 10, and 1 fall are bad chance, but you're perfectly alright with the what chance. Even though that's become the most irritated thing ever because now they just cut off wrestlers they don't like. And kind of lose their concentration and make their promos even worse to people. And then, even more confusing, Dolph Ziggler, they don't want to push him. Well, yeah, he's going to be main eventing Fastlane, but do you really think he's going to win the WWE Championship? No. And the fact that he signed a contract surprised me because I thought, yeah, he should just quit. There's nothing left for him here because they don't care about him. He's not going to get the respect he deserves because he said some things, even though really they could just tie that into a storyline with the Authority and did a Randy Orton versus Dolph Ziggler match, which would have been awesome and kind of a delay the inevitable Bryan win that everyone was hoping for. No, they just said bury him. Let's screw him over. I'm like, he didn't say anything that could damage the company's reputation. He just had an opinion, but it wasn't something that was damning. And then there was that storyline with The Miz and Dolph Ziggler. Everyone to this day wondered, why did Dolph Ziggler and Miz not main event No Mercy? The triple threat match for the WWE Championship, that has a reason why it was the first match. Because football and the presidential debate. That at least has a reason. Orton and Wyatt don't. They don't have the storyline. A report came out just a few days after that pay-per-view. The reason why they didn't do it is because Wyatt and Orton are bigger stars. They thought they would give away the ending to the Dolph Ziggler and Miz match. Even though really, there's like 3 different ways I can think off the top of my head. I could exaggerate and just say trillion. But yeah, they could come up with any other reason to do that instead of bullshit. Saying Orton and Wyatt are the biggest stars. Really? That's your reason? So you admit Wyatt's a top guy, but you don't want to make him a top guy. What kind of logic is that? I know I know WWE logic, but even now, even that's stupid. Even that makes no sense. Orton, yeah, he's a top guy, but he hasn't really done anything big since the Authority storyline. And then everyone's wondering, why is it Dolph Ziggler and Miz main eventing? And the whole, well, it would have given away the happy ending they were going to do. No, it wouldn't. Like, because reports were already coming out, Ziggler's contract was coming up around that time, so it stands to reason, yeah, he probably is leaving. And they could have exploited that. They could have used the internet to their advantage. Ring of Honor did this in the early 2000s with Punk when he signed with WWE. So it's small. So the independent promotion could do something a decade when the internet was not as big as it is now, make huge money off of it, and WWE can't do it? Really? Because Vince doesn't use it for the stories? That he doesn't get ideas? If he had... I like to hopefully believe that if they had thought that because there were all these rumors of Ziggler's contract coming up, they could have exploited that and turned it into a storyline of uncertainty. Like, maybe Ziggler won't win. Maybe there's a huge chance Ziggler isn't going to win. The years of frustration, that would have been justified for him to leave. They could have used that. They didn't. And yeah, I'm just... Because certain wrestlers said, I don't need you, I can make it on my own. And WWE has a bruised ego because of that, and they're going to go out of their way to fuck over so many other lives who have families, have responsibilities, have bills to pay because, oh, I don't like you because if you get popular, you'll walk out on me. And someone said this. They describe it as you date this girl in school, you break up with her, you find a new girl years later, she's no longer who your previous girlfriend was no longer who she once was, and then now she's jealous that you're happy, you're doing something else, you're having a perfect life. She isn't, the previous girl isn't, and she's going to try and ruin your life because of it. That's what someone said in the comments, I believe. But, yeah, that's the best way to describe it. But, yeah. And here's the thing. I want to hope that theory isn't true. I really do. But the fact that the very fact that now that people are now starting to think that other people who made these theories for years are now saying, you might be onto something, is honestly the most depressing thing about it. It's not as depressing as Undertaker taking pain relief injections in order to keep wrestling. That's seriously more depressing. But yeah, I could mention Undertaker because he never left. He stayed. He still stays. He's even rumored to take on Cena, which I'm strictly against. I want him out. I want him to retire. I want him to live a happy, healthy life. Still hasn't gotten that surgery yet. Gonna have to take more pain relief injections and make it even more depressing. So, yeah. Finn Balor was screwed over because he's not over enough. Which I was like, do you not see the thousands of people throwing their hands in the air whenever Finn Balor did his entrance? You have so many storylines you could do with him, you don't want to do it. Because when people think of Finn Balor, they think of Japan. They think of all the other independent promotions. They think of Venom when he dressed up, when he painted up as him. They think of the Joker when he painted up as him. They think of anyone else and anything else than WWE and Vince McMahon. They also think of Triple H. They think of NXT because they treated these guys with respect. But because Vince doesn't like NXT because it does better than his ideas, he has to say, fuck it. I'm going to screw everybody over. So, yeah, like I said, the very fact that more people are starting to think, we, as people who come up with these theories, are now starting to say, you're onto something, is honestly the most depressing thing I've heard, because I've been wishing for a while, for 2 years, even before that, when I had these theories. I really hope I'm wrong. I am seriously hoping I was wrong. But now that people are starting to think, you might be onto something, all this is saying that you might be onto something. Yeah, which just leads to the question, why don't they just revolt? Why don't they just quit? Probably because after Punk left, I'm pretty sure they locked everybody's contracts in. They locked everyone. That's my best theory. Because these top wrestlers they wanted to have, and Punk left, they locked these wrestlers in. Like, yeah, they don't have to come into work, but they could face a huge fucking ton of lawsuits for walking out on a locked-in contract. And in fact, the burying of talent, because if they get over here, they'll think of something else. The fans will think of something else, and WWE won't get the credit. That could even apply to when WCW, who, quote, invaded WWE. Like, look at DDP. He was a huge star in WCW. He didn't go anywhere else in WWE. Booker T, it took him several years to get over, to finally win back the gold. Chris Jericho, okay, Chris Jericho is a huge exception because he basically told WCW after 1998 to get fucked and signed with WWE in 99. So, yeah, you can even make the argument that Jericho was an exception. But this is the theory I've been wishing was wrong. As much as I say, I really wished it was wrong. And I also remembered Alex Riley. Yeah, but Cena didn't like the fact Alex Riley could be a new John Cena. He didn't like that and basically got him demoted and pushed down. Yeah, I've been sometimes wishing I was wrong on my theories. I've been wishing those who do come up with these sabotaging theories are wrong, and some hope they're wrong. But now that people are starting to think, as time goes on, that you might be onto something, that's honestly depressing for me. And I'm pretty sure a lot of those people are wishing that they wish they were wrong. I wouldn't be surprised. Like, Dalyxman says he doesn't want this to be true, but the evidence might be hinting at that. All these reports, all these interviews that wrestlers make after they leave WWE might be hinting at that. It's sad. Really freaking sad. So those were my thoughts. I'm just going to end it here or else I'll just ramble. More so. So those were my thoughts on Dalyxman's WWE The Great Sabotage Theory. This was Neo Reality Entertainment. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and donate. Stay tuned for more.